The collectors. Commander Zexthal gazed through the viewport of his massive harvesting vessel, the Dominion's pride. His 4 eyes gleamed with satisfaction, as Earth hung before them like a ripe fruit ready for plucking. The blue marble looked so peaceful, so innocent. How delightfully naive these humans were. Status report, Lieutenant Vrakis. Zexthal commanded in his native tongue, his mandibles clicking with anticipation. All systems operational. Commander, the neural inhibitor fields are charging to full capacity. Our scout reports indicate the humans have no idea we're here. Vraktis paused, his scale fingers dancing across holographic controls. Shall we begin the collection process? Zexthal's throat sacs inflated with what passed for laughter among his species. Oh yes, Lieutenant. Let's give these primitive creatures a proper welcome to their new reality. The year was 2087, and humanity had just begun to reach beyond their solar system. Earth's population had swelled to 12 billion souls, all blissfully unaware that they were about to become the latest addition to the Caltharian Empire's slave workforce. Down on Earth, in the bustling metropolis of New Geneva, Dr. Sarah Chen was having the worst day of her career. Her latest experiment in quantum communication had failed spectacularly, leaving her laboratory in shambles and her funding in jeopardy. Perfect, she muttered, kicking a piece of twisted metal across the floor. Just absolutely perfect. 3 years of work down the drain because some bureaucrat thinks my research is too theoretical. Her colleague, Dr. Marcus Rodriguez, peeked his head through the smoke-filled doorway. Sarah, you okay in there? The explosion was heard 3 floors down. Oh, I'm fantastic, Marcus. Really living the dream here. Sarah's voice dripped with sarcasm as she surveyed the wreckage. Nothing says successful scientific career like accidentally creating a miniature black hole in your own lab. Marcus stepped carefully over the debris. Look on the bright side. At least you didn't actually create a black hole, or we'd all be spaghettified right now. Thanks for the pep talk, Dr. Sunshine. Sarah slumped into her chair, which creaked ominously under her weight. What's the point anyway? We're so far behind where we should be. Sometimes I wonder if humanity is even worth saving from its own stupidity. As if the universe had a twisted sense of humor. That's precisely when the sky began to darken. High above Earth's atmosphere, the Caltharian fleet emerged from hyperspace like a swarm of metallic locusts. 50 vessels, each the size of Manhattan, materialized in perfect formation around the planet. Their hulls gleamed with an otherworldly alloy that seemed to drink in the light from Earth's sun. Admiral Hayes was enjoying his morning coffee at NORAD when every alarm in the facility began shrieking simultaneously. Coffee splashed across his uniform as he bolted upright, his 25 years of military experience kicking in immediately. What the hell is going on? He barked at the nearest technician. Sir, we're detecting massive energy signatures in orbit. 50, no, wait, 62 unidentified objects just appeared out of nowhere. The young man's voice trembled as he spoke. Sir, they're bigger than anything we've ever seen. Hayes' blood ran cold. This was a scenario every military leader had nightmares about, the one they planned for but never truly believed would happen. Give me the president. Now, and patch me through to every military installation on the planet. But the Caltharians weren't interested in negotiations or gradual conquest. They had perfected the art of species acquisition over the course of 3 millennia, and they knew that swift, overwhelming action was the key to minimizing resistance. Commander Zexthal activated his ship's planetary communication array, hijacking every television, radio, and internet signal on Earth simultaneously. His image appeared on billions of screens, his alien features causing panic across the globe. Greetings, humans, he began, his voice artificially translated into every Earth language. I am Commander Zexthal of the Caltharian Empire. Your species has been selected for integration into our workforce. Resistance is not only futile, but unnecessarily complicated. We suggest compliance. Sarah and Marcus stared at the laboratory's emergency broadcast screen in stunned silence. The creature speaking to them looked like something from a nightmare, with elongated features, multiple eyes, and skin that seemed to shift between colors. Well, Sarah said finally, her voice eerily calm. This is new. Sarah, that's an alien. An actual alien. On TV. Talking to us. Marcus's voice climbed several octaves. Shouldn't we be panicking right about now? Probably, Sarah replied, already moving toward her computer terminal. But panic never solved anything. Besides, I had a really bad day, and I'm in no mood to be told what to do by some overgrown praying mantis with delusions of grandeur. Across the planet, humanity's initial reaction was exactly what the Caltharians expected: fear, confusion, and scattered attempts at resistance. Military installations fired missiles that simply bounced off the alien ships' shields like toys. World leaders tried to establish communication, only to be ignored completely. But in the depths of NORAD, Admiral Hayes was doing something the Caltharians hadn't anticipated. He was laughing. "Sir," his aide asked nervously, Are you okay?" Hayes wiped tears from his eyes. "Son, do you know what these aliens just did? They just made the biggest tactical error in military history." "Sir, I don't understand." "They told us exactly what they were planning. No deception, no false promises of peace. Just straight up told us we're about to become slaves." Hayes grinned like a predator. "Do you know what happens when you threaten a human's freedom?" Before the aide could answer, Hayes was already barking orders. "Get me General Morrison in Moscow, Field Marshal Zhang in Beijing, and Admiral Du Bois in Paris. If these bastards want to fight, we'll give them one they'll never forget." The Caltharians began their harvesting operation with the confidence of a species that had never encountered meaningful resistance. Massive tractor beams descended from their ships, designed to lift entire city blocks into their cargo holds for processing. But as the first beam struck downtown Tokyo, something unexpected happened. The humans didn't just scream and run. They fought back. Dr. Yuki Tanaka had been working on experimental electromagnetic pulse technology when the aliens arrived. As the tractor beam engulfed her research facility, she made a decision that would echo through history. She overloaded every piece of electronic equipment in the building and channeled the resulting energy surge directly into the alien beam. The explosion was visible from orbit. Commander Zextho watched in disbelief as his lead harvesting ship reeled from the unexpected feedback. "What just happened? How did those primitives damage our technology?" "Unknown, Commander," Vractiv replied, his voice tight with concern. "The energy surge came from inside the harvest zone. It appears the humans deliberately overloaded their own equipment to create a feedback loop. Clever," Zextho admitted grudgingly, "but ultimately pointless. Increase power to the neural inhibitors. Let's see how clever they are when they can barely think." But the neural inhibitors, designed to pacify docile species, had an unexpected effect on human brains. Instead of inducing compliance, they triggered something that the Caltharians had never encountered before: pure, unbridled rage. Sarah Chen felt the alien device attempting to invade her mind, and her response was immediate and violent. Years of frustration, every failed experiment, every bureaucratic obstacle, every condescending colleague who had ever dismissed her work, all of it crystallized into a burning desire to make these aliens regret their life choices. "Oh, you want to mess with my brain?" she snarled, her fingers flying over her computer keyboard. "Let me show you what this primitive little mind can do." She began typing code faster than she had ever typed in her life, her consciousness somehow enhanced by the alien interference. The quantum communication device she had been working on, the one that had exploded just hours earlier, suddenly made perfect sense. She could see the flaws in her design, the missing variables, the elegant solution that had eluded her for years. "Marcus!" she shouted over the sound of alien ships passing overhead. "Fire up the backup generators. All of them. Sarah, what are you doing?" "I'm about to send our new friends a message they'll never forget." Meanwhile, in military installations across the globe, a similar transformation was taking place. The neural inhibitors, instead of suppressing human aggression, were amplifying it to unprecedented levels. Soldiers who had been paralyzed by the alien superior technology suddenly found themselves thinking with crystal clarity. General Morrison in Moscow stared at the tactical display, showing alien positions, and smiled coldly. They're maintaining standard formation patterns. Predictable, arrogant. He turned to his staff. "Prepare the underground nuclear arsenal. Not to destroy them, mind you, to get their attention." In Beijing, Field Marshal Zhang was coordinating with resistance cells that had formed spontaneously across Asia. The aliens are using tractor beams to harvest population centers, but they're avoiding areas with high electromagnetic interference. They don't want to damage their equipment. So we give them all the electromagnetic interference they can handle, Admiral Du Bois added from Paris, his voice crackling to the quantum encrypted communication system that somehow, impossibly, was still functioning despite the alien jamming. Back in New Geneva, Sarah's fingers were moving so fast across her keyboard that they were almost a blur. The quantum communication array she was building wasn't just a means of talking across vast distances. It was a weapon. "Sarah, the power levels are going critical," Marcus warned, his voice nearly drowned out by the humming of overloaded generators. "Good," Sarah replied without looking up. "I need every joule we can generate. These aliens think they can just show up and take whatever they want. Time to teach them about human hospitality." Her device wasn't designed to communicate with other humans. It was designed to communicate with every piece of Caltharian technology simultaneously, delivering a very simple message. A concentrated burst of chaotic quantum noise that would overload their systems from the inside out. Commander Zexthal was beginning to realize that his species might have made a terrible mistake. Reports were flooding in from across the planet. Humans weren't just resisting. They were adapting, learning, turning the Caltharians' own technology against them with an ingenuity that bordered on the supernatural. "Commander," Vracta called out urgently, were detecting massive energy buildups across the planet. The humans appeared to be coordinating some kind of planetary defense network. "Impossible," Zexthal replied, but his voice lacked conviction. "They're primitives. They barely have faster-than-light communication. Sir, I'm reading quantum signatures from over 3,000 locations. Whatever they're building, it's big." Sarah's device reached critical mass at exactly the same moment as similar devices in laboratories, military bases, and garage workshops across Earth. Humanity had never been more united in purpose. Every brilliant mind on the planet was focused on a single goal, making these aliens very, very sorry they had ever heard of Earth. "Initiating quantum pulse in 3, 2, 1, Sarah whispered and pressed the activation key. The pulse that erupted from Earth was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It wasn't just a weapon. It was a declaration of war wrapped in pure mathematics and delivered with the concentrated fury of 12 billion very angry humans. Every Caltharian ship in orbit shuddered as their systems were invaded by chaotic quantum noise. Navigation computers crashed. Life support systems flickered. Communication arrays exploded in showers of sparks. But worst of all, from Commander Zexthal's perspective, the neural inhibitor network was completely fried. And that meant every human on Earth was about to remember exactly why their species had clawed its way to the top of their planet's food chain. The real war was about to begin. The reckoning. Commander Zexthal's four eyes bulged as his flagship's primary systems crashed one by one. Sparks flew from control panels while emergency lighting bathed the bridge in an ominous red glow. In 3,000 years of conquest, the Caltharian Empire had never experienced anything like this. "Damage report," he bellowed, his voice cracking with barely controlled panic. Lieutenant Raktos frantically worked his damaged console. "Sir, we've lost primary navigation. Communication arrays are down, and the neural inhibitor network is completely offline. Worse yet, the quantum pulse seems to have created some kind of feedback loop in our ship-to-ship coordination systems." "What does that mean in practical terms, Lieutenant?" "It means we're flying blind, deaf, and mute, Commander, and the humans know it. Down on Earth, the aftermath of the quantum pulse had an electrifying effect on humanity. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in her ruined laboratory, watching alien ships stumble through the sky like drunken birds, and allowed herself a moment of savage satisfaction. "Marcus, are you seeing this?" she called to her colleague, who was staring open-mouthed at the tactical display. "Sarah, their ships are actually listing to starboard. You've managed to give spaceships the equivalent of motion sickness." Marcus shook his head in amazement. "How is that even possible?" "Simple physics, my friend. Their navigation systems rely on quantum positioning networks. I just filled those networks with the digital equivalent of white noise mixed with heavy metal music. Sarah's grin was positively predatory. They can't tell up from down, let alone coordinate an attack. Across the globe, humanity was experiencing a collective awakening. The failed neural inhibitors hadn't just freed human minds. They had somehow enhanced them. Scientists were solving problems that had puzzled them for decades. Military strategists were seeing tactical opportunities with unprecedented clarity. Even ordinary citizens were displaying levels of coordination and ingenuity that bordered on the miraculous. Admiral Hayes stood in NORAD's command center, watching real-time feeds from across the planet. Gentlemen, ladies, what we're witnessing is unprecedented in human history. Every major population center is spontaneously organizing resistance efforts. It's like the entire species just woke up from a dream. His aide pointed to a screen showing the industrial district of Detroit. Sir, look at this. Factory workers are converting automobile assembly lines to produce electromagnetic pulse devices. They're using spare parts and scrap metal to build weapons that didn't exist 6 hours ago. And here, another technician added, highlighting a feed from rural Kansas. Farmers are using modified crop irrigation systems to create massive radar arrays. They're tracking alien movement patterns with equipment they built from John Deere tractors and satellite TV dishes. Hayes nodded grimly. The aliens made a critical error. They assumed that superior technology automatically meant superior intelligence. They forgot that humans don't just adapt to challenges. We thrive on them. In orbit, Commander Zexthal was beginning to understand the magnitude of his species' mistake. The Caltharians had conquered over 200 worlds, but they had always faced civilizations that either surrendered immediately or fought with predictable tactics. Humanity was doing neither. Sir, Vractis reported, his voice tight with disbelief. Long-range sensors are detecting massive construction projects across the planet's surface. The humans appear to be building some kind of planetary defense grid using their existing infrastructure. That's impossible. Such a project would require global coordination on a scale that... Zexthol's words trailed off as the implications hit him. Lieutenant, how long has it been since we disabled their communication networks? 4 hours and 37 minutes, Commander. And they built a planetary defense grid in 4.5 hours. It appears so, sir. Moreover, they seem to be using our own jamming signals as a power source for their constructions. Zexthal felt something he had never experienced in his long career. Genuine fear. Get me a direct communication channel to the surface. I need to speak with their leaders immediately. But humanity wasn't in a talking mood. Dr. Elena Vasquez had been a software engineer in Mexico City when the aliens arrived. Now, thanks to the enhanced mental clarity provided by the failed neural inhibitors, she had become something far more dangerous, a digital warrior with a very specific target in mind. Rosa, are you monitoring the alien communication attempts? She called her partner, who was working frantically at a bank of computers they had assembled from parts scavenged across the city. See, Elena, they're trying to establish diplomatic contact with government officials. Should we patch them through? Elena's smile was absolutely chilling. Oh no, mi amor, we're going to give them exactly what they deserve. Patch me into their communication system, but not to talk. I have a different kind of message to deliver. What Elena had created was a virus specifically designed to exploit the quantum communication protocols the aliens used. It wouldn't just crash their systems. It would turn their own technology into a weapon against them. Meanwhile, in the Australian outback, Dr. James Kowalski was putting the finishing touches on humanity's most audacious project yet. Using the massive radio telescope arrays scattered across the continent, he had created a device that could turn Earth itself into a giant electromagnetic pulse generator. This is either going to save our species or accidentally launch us into the sun, he muttered his team of volunteers, most of whom were sheep farmers and mining engineers who had driven hundreds of miles to help with the construction. Either way, replied Margaret O'Brien, a 60-year-old rancher who had somehow become an expert in quantum mechanics over the past 6 hours. It'll be more interesting than watching the aliens turn us into slaves. Back in orbit, the Caltharian fleet was discovering that their situation was deteriorating rapidly. Elena's virus had begun spreading through their communication networks, causing ships to receive contradictory orders and navigation data. Some vessels were spinning helplessly in space, while others were flying in tight circles, their crews unable to regain control. "Commander," Brackus reported, his voice now tinged with panic. "We're receiving reports of system failures across the entire fleet. Ships are losing propulsion. Life support is failing on 3 vessels, and the flagship Eternal Dominion just jettisoned its entire cargo bay for no apparent reason." Zexthol's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme stress among the species. "How are they doing this?" "They're supposed to be primitives." "Sir, I believe we may have fundamentally misunderstood human psychology. Our intelligence reports suggested they were a fragmented species, prone to infighting and incapable of large-scale cooperation. And now they appear to be functioning as a single organism with 12 billion angry components, all focused on making us regret our life choices." On Earth, the transformation of human society was proceeding at an unprecedented pace. In New York City, Wall Street traders were using their market analysis software to predict alien fleet movements with startling accuracy. In London, Shakespeare scholars were composing algorithmic poetry that somehow disrupted alien computer systems. In Tokyo, video game designers were creating real-time tactical simulations that allowed military commanders across the globe to coordinate attacks with surgical precision. But perhaps the most remarkable transformation was taking place in the small town of Cedar Rapids, Iowa, where retired schoolteacher Martha Henderson had become humanity's most effective psychological warfare specialist. "Now, dear," she said sweetly into the alien communication channel that her grandson had helped her hack, "I've been thinking about your little invasion attempt, and I have some thoughts I'd like to share." Commander Zexthal found himself actually leaning forward to listen. After hours of system failures and incomprehensible attacks, a calm, grandmotherly voice was almost soothing. "You see," Martha continued, her tone never losing its pleasant, conversational quality, "you've made what my late husband would call a tactical error. You assume that because we haven't left our solar system yet, we must be stupid. But, honey, there's a difference between being less technologically advanced and being less intelligent. What are you trying to tell me?" Zexthal found himself asking. "Well, sugar, I'm trying to explain why your invasion is about to become the worst day in your species' history. You see, humans have something you don't. Spite. Pure, concentrated, weaponized spite. And when you threatened to enslave us, you didn't just make us angry. You gave us a common enemy." As if to punctuate her words, every piece of human technology on Earth suddenly synchronized into a single, massive pulse that struck the alien fleet like a hammer blow. Ships that had been struggling with system failures suddenly found themselves completely powerless, drifting helplessly in Earth's orbit. Dr. Sarah Chen watched from her laboratory as alien vessels began falling toward Earth's atmosphere, their engines dead and their shields failing. "Marcus, are you recording this?" "Every second of it, for the history books." "Good, because I want future generations to remember what happens when someone tries to enslave humanity. The falling alien ships didn't crash randomly. Coordinated by the Global Defense Network, they were guided to specific landing sites where human teams were waiting, not to destroy them, but to capture them." Admiral Hayes supervised the operation from NORAD, his voice calm and professional despite the magnitude of what was happening. "Remember, people, we want prisoners and technology, not casualties. These beings made a mistake, but they're still sentient creatures deserving of basic dignity." "Sir," his aide asked, "what do we do with them once we have them?" Hayes smiled grimly. "We're going to give them a chance to experience human hospitality firsthand. And then we're going to send them home with a message for their empire." The message, when it was finally delivered, was simple and terrifying in its implications. Commander Zexthal, now a prisoner aboard his own ship, watched as Dr. Sarah Chen addressed the recording device with the same calm professionalism she might use to describe a scientific experiment. To the Caltharian Empire and any other species that might be considering Earth as a conquest target, this message serves as both a warning and an invitation. You attempted to enslave humanity without understanding what humanity actually is. We are not a primitive species stumbling toward the stars. We are apex predators who learn to cooperate, and there is nothing more dangerous in the universe than an intelligent predator with friends. She paused, her expression growing deadly serious. However, we are also a species capable of forgiveness and cooperation. Your surviving crew members are being treated with dignity and respect. They will be returned to you unharmed, along with detailed specifications for the technology we developed to defeat your invasion. Consider it a gift and a demonstration. A demonstration of what? Zexthal found himself asking. Sarah looked directly at the camera, and her smile was absolutely terrifying. A demonstration of what we can build when we're being friendly. You really don't want to see what we can create when we're not. The alien fleet that limped away from Earth carried more than just survivors and technology. They carried the knowledge that humanity was not just another species to be cataloged and conquered. They were something entirely new. A young predator species on the verge of reaching the stars, unified by the attempt to enslave them. As the last alien ship disappeared into hyperspace, Dr. Sarah Chen stood in her reconstructed laboratory, looking up at the stars with new eyes. The failed invasion had done more than just repel an alien threat. It had transformed humanity itself, uniting the species and accelerating their technological development by decades. So, Marcus asked, joining her at the window, "What do we do now?" Sarah's grin was sharp enough to cut diamond. Now we go and introduce ourselves to our galactic neighbors. Politely, of course, but they should probably know that Earth is under new management. Above them, the stars seem to shimmer with possibility and promise. Humanity had passed its first test as a spacefaring species, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The age of human expansion was about to begin, and it would be glorious.